The only things you'll need for this video are a pair of ski poles. We will use an ankle band. Some people call these monster bands. And you can use or substitute that with a cord type band as well. So really limited equipment. I like to start things off with a quick 5 to 10 minute jog to get the blood moving, and then we'll work on some mobility. The two areas where cross-country skiers will tend to struggle with injury is when they're tight both in the thoracic spine or in the hips and glutes. So if you have tight hip flexors or tight glutes, it will often tilt your pelvis, and you will find that you're more susceptible to lower back pain. Same goes for the thoracic spine. If you're tight in the upper portion of your spine or tight within the shoulders, it will often lead to neck pain when you're skiing. So before we do any type of body positioning or strength workouts, I like to focus on mobility both within the hips and the thoracic spine. A quadruped hip car is a great exercise to start out with. Here I'm focusing on beginning this exercise by keeping my pelvis in a neutral position. And then I'm doing this hip car motion both forward and backward. While doing so, I'm trying to make sure to keep my hips fairly level and not really tilt to either side. I might do 15 of these each leg to start off the workout. This thoracic stretching routine is one of my favorites. Here I'm starting by bending over to a light hamstring stretch, and then I sink down into what we call a sumo. From there, my arms go above my head to stretch the thoracic spine before standing back up in a squatting motion again. What I'm trying to focus on here is keeping the elbows kind of to the ears and keeping my arms as straight as possible. Now let's move into some dynamic stretching. Here I'm simply using my poles to stabilize myself as I do some lateral leg swings. Dynamic stretching, or stretching that involves movement, can be much more beneficial pre-workout versus static stretching can be much more beneficial for skiers post-workout. So these are great examples of dynamic stretches to do before you strap your skis on. Cross-country skiing injuries often come from overuse type injuries. As skiers, we're really oftentimes hunched over in the upper body because that's where we kind of generate a lot of our pulling power. But in reality, if you want to be strong within your pulling motion, you also have to have some thoracic flexibility and be able to open up the chest a little bit. So a lot of these mobility exercises, I always like to incorporate some type of reaching motion with my stretches. Incorporating an overhead reach hold within your stretching can be really beneficial, especially for skiers who spend so much time in a crunching position. So when we kind of force ourselves out of that position and have to reach above our head and above our ears, that's when we can really open up the thoracic spine. This next variation adds in more movement and a balance element. Here I do a quad stretch and reach, knee to chest, and then into a lunge. Quad stretch, knee to chest, into a lunge. You can also come up and do a knee to chest. This is really great at working on that stacked body position that we'll need once we put our skis on. If you're ever doing band work, trying to strengthen the glutes, the hips, that is all balance training in reality. So a lot of people think of it as strengthening. I think of it as strengthening training, strength training, and also balance training. Being balanced on your skis does not come from the lower leg. It comes from being strong and stable through the core. Nowadays in skiing, we think of the core not just as the torso or the abs, but the portion of the body from the knees all the way up to the shoulders. If you're an NTS member, you probably know that we do a lot of ankle band work. We call these monster bands, ankle bands. And the reason why is because we're strengthening the hips and the glutes, which will help our balance, help our stability on skis. But whenever we're doing any type of ankle band work, we always want to think about pushing in the direction of travel and not reaching there. That's a huge piece of modern ski technique that we'll talk a lot about in the future. We never want to be reaching our way down the track if we're skate skiing. We always want to be pushing in the direction of travel. And so really think about that when you're doing your lateral band steps. We'll start with a lateral band step, and I want to push laterally. I don't want to reach with my front leg and have the back leg follow. So I'm not reaching, I'm pushing. For most athletes, I really recommend they start with a pretty easy band for these exercises. There's no reason to use a super high resistance band. Instead, focus on really good technique and quality movements before you up your resistance. We can work on fairly ski-specific motions with a band. Here I'm doing a forward classic push. And again, I'm working on pushing myself forward, not reaching with the front leg. So if you don't have an ankle band, but you do have a cord, these are kind of more common to find at sporting goods shops or something. You can do most of these lateral band steps with the cord as well. So just kind of step over it so the cord is underneath the arches of your feet. You can also do lateral band steps with a cord as well. So here at Nordic Team Solutions, we always use the term stacked. So you always want to be stacked in your body position and stacked over your skis. So once we've now mobilized and now activated the glutes, the hips, and the core, we now want to work on that stacked body position. And one of the best ways to do that is with a simple drop and hold drill. So the most fundamental kind of athletic body position stacked drill we do. And for this, we rise up onto our toes with our hands above our head. And in one motion, we'll throw our hands down and land onto the kind of the midfoot, the balls of our feet, in a balanced position. Once you've nailed the 2-foot drop and hold, it's time to try a single leg drop and hold. Here we raise up onto 2 feet, but when we drop down, we try to balance on one leg. Try not to have the knee dive in either direction. Try to keep the knee in line with the ankle and the foot, and the hips stacked over the knee, the shoulders stacked over the hips. This is a fundamental gliding position we want to ingrain. New that's come out of technique training in the last 10 years is a shift to what I call more of a mechanics-based approach to technique. That's because ski racing has become a bit more powerful, a bit more dynamic, and because of that, we're in a much more powerful and upright body position, one that's based off of running mechanics, which is why one of the big technical elements that I teach is what's called a mechanics-based approach to technique. And because of that, a lot of our ski body position drills really go hand in hand with running mechanics drills. Here I have the band set thigh level above the knees, and I'm working on a slow motion runner. For this drill, I start in a runner pose and drop down into a single leg RDL and then raise back up into the runner pose. You'll notice that by doing this with a band, I have to activate the glutes the entire time and keep the core engaged in order to stay stable and stacked over my leg. Progress this drill to the point where you do a runner tap in between each hold. So here I come into the high position and do 1-2 tap, back down into the single leg RDL. This is a great low impact type of plyometric that is perfect for master skiers to work on balance and some agility and also some quick foot movement at the same time. Next, get rid of the band and move into a lateral lunge with runner tap. Here I'm doing a simple single leg lateral lunge, coming up into a high runner pose, and doing a single foot tap. This drill is great at working on that stacked skating position now that we've activated the glute muscles. It's also training us to be light on our feet, have a quick change of momentum and direction, and also keep the glute muscles activated the entire time. A lot of people hear the word plyometric or Spence and they think it's going to be a really high impact, kind of aggressive workout, but you can still work on body position and very light plyometrics without a whole lot of impact, which is a great approach for a lot of master skiers. One of the best ways you can do that are with the drop and holds, a little bit of band work, and just some light lateral skate pushes or skate bounds. A single response skate bound means I'm jumping from one leg to the next, but making sure I'm set and balanced before I make the next step. This is what we call a single response jump. Progress the single leg plyo into a more dynamic multiple response skate jump. Here I'm preloading the leg and jumping from one side to the next. During all these exercises, I'm really focusing on continuing to keep the glute muscles activated and make sure when I push laterally, I'm continuing to use the glute muscles. So there are a lot of really good body position plyometric type drills you can do that are pretty stationary. Do them on a soft surface, so don't do them on a parking lot or on pavement. Do them on grass if you can. And if you're somebody that wants to incorporate a little bit more bounding in the routine, this is the time to do that within the workout. Take your bounding pulls, work on a little classic imitation, some skate imitation. There's really no wrong way to do it. Do a few hill repeats. It's all really good training for that muscle memory, that neuromuscular training, so that when you click onto your skis during camp, you'll kind of fall right back into that good body position that you've trained here on the grass, and you'll be much more likely to engage the glutes, the hamstrings, the hips, and all these really strong core muscles that we want to make sure we're using while we're on cross-country skis. If you have time, now incorporate some aerobic training into the workout. Running with poles and bounding, doing hill repeats in the 30 to 40 second range are great at working on lower body specific strength and ingraining correct body position and technique. Now let's finish off the workout with some strength exercises. We know that strength and stability within the core is really crucial to going fast on skis. So when I'm working on the core, I sometimes do pretty unconventional core exercises. I like to focus on core exercises that use stability, but ones where you're also moving some type of extremity. So that's a little bit different than your typical go to the floor, lay down a mat and do some crunches kind of thing. I like to focus on core exercises where you might be using the shoulders, the hips, the glutes, as well as the abs and the transverse abdominis and all these kind of good core muscles within your trunk. So you'll notice that some of these exercises might kind of work the shoulders and the hips and other parts of your body as well as just your abs. This good morning push-up with a knee to elbow is a good example of an upper body exercise that will also work the core. So here I do a good morning push-up, which means a windmill, where I lead with the pinky on each arm, go down into a push-up in between each one, and then from the pike position, I go opposite knee to opposite elbow. So here I'm continuing to work stability and also work the core at the same time. When it comes to equipment-free strength, split squats are one of the best exercises to do. Here I'm working on just good controlled speed split squats where I'm going down and sinking the knee to the ground each time, trying to work the glute muscles and the hamstrings, and also stay stable through the core. Here's a plank walk with the band over the hands. This is a good one to work on that shoulder strength and external rotation stability, while also working on that front pike or front plank position and staying active through the core. You can also do the same exercise and put the bands around the ankles. So here I'm trying to take 15 to 20 lateral steps while staying really stable through the core, trying not to drop the hip in either direction. That's the most important thing, is making sure my hip doesn't dive to the right or left as I step in that direction. A nice exercise that can isolate the abs is a stick over under. Here I'm going into a crunch position. Here I'm using a ski pole to go under my feet to the butt, up over the legs again, and all the way back down to the ground. This is a really nice full range of motion crunching exercise that also requires a lot of stability and a lot of control. So you're not just kind of cranking away without controlling the abs at the same time. And finally, one of my favorite exercises for skiing, this is a side plank with a hip abduction. So this is a really good exercise that focuses on stability while also moving an extremity, in this case your leg, where you're trying to keep your hip muscle and your glute muscle engaged while keeping that strong plank.